needs to be 4 or 5 minutes behind this.
Hi, Steve.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Oh my God, I think, if we have a quorum, let's see, we got Pat, Steve, Tanya, Chris, Debbie, woo, quorum's on. So Michelle has started this. Thank you, Michelle. We've got Tom Callahan. Tom, thank you for coming. We are recording. And I don't know if Michelle handed it over to somebody like Debbie or Pat, but
I've got it.
Debbie, you're the best. All right.
I think, and
Well-
Pat's got it too.
Oh, good. Well, it's good
Okay,
to have
wait a second.
double just in case something happens.
Okay.
It's good. And the committees I'm on, we don't trust any of us to be the host. We have to have staff all the time. So
Well, normally we do have staff, but they're conflicted. So we were able to convince them to hand over the keys to the kingdom.
good.
Okay, it's 7:30 exactly. So we will begin. This is the Alternative Energy Committee of Cohasset. In accordance with state regs, we are allowed to do this online through Zoom. We have posted the agenda appropriately and we can do this meeting. We have some interesting things to talk about today. But the first thing is, before we welcome our guest speaker, Tom Callahan, let's do a quick round of who we are in our role on the Alternative Energy Committee. So my name is Tanya. I'm the chair of the Alternative Energy Committee.
Pat Gooding, co-chair.
Steve Wenner, Chair of the Aggregation Subcommittee.
Debbie Cook, secretary.
I'm Chris Odleyson. I guess I'm just a member.
You're an important member, a very important member. So we have 5 of our 7 here, Tom, and I think that, there's one more than our quorum. So I'm very happy that you're here to talk through what you're doing on the zoning board. Before that, I'd like to just move forward with, hopefully everybody received and reviewed the minutes from our last meeting on February 9th, 2023. And if so, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, I'll move that.
I'll second it.
Okay, so Chris moved and Pat seconded, and we need to roll call vote. Tanya Bodell, aye.
Pat Gooding,
Steve
aye.
Wenner, aye.
Debbie Cook, aye.
Chris Odleyson, aye.
Pat?
I said aye.
Okay,
This is Pat Gooding.
okay, so the minutes have passed. I will put on a final and send those for posting. And we are all caught up with the minutes. And thank you again, Debbie, for your most excellent work as the secretary of this Alternative Energy Committee. Your minutes continue to be amazing. All right, Tom Callahan, welcome. Tom is the chair of the Cohasset Zoning Bylaw Committee. And he has been noodling on
And the planning board. I'm a grand
the planning
poobah.
board. And
Yeah.
I don't, you can talk about whether or not those are two inextricably related.
They are. By the way, I just saw an email. You have somebody named Michael Schmidt looking for the link to the meeting.
Oh, I don't see him. Do you see him, Pat?
No, he's looking for the link.
I just sent him an email
And
telling
then-
him what to
and
do.
Josh Staunton is asking to be added to the meeting. So
Well, I don't see them. I don't see them on here to let them in. Are they in the room?
I guess Josh is posting.
Oh,
that
here's
he
Josh.
and
Okay,
Michael
wait a
can't
sec.
join.
Okay,
So
so, all right, so
See?
attendees, but when I click, usually they let you go in a room and they let you out, but I've done this many, many times, but this is not working. And Fran Collins is in there too. Hopefully you guys can hear. One call-in visitor, one call-in listener. Is that you, Todd? Who's that? There's a call-in listener.
I don't know. Maybe it's somebody who didn't, maybe it's somebody who didn't push, that they want to participate.
I apologize because Pat,
Okay.
do you see, you are also a co-host. Or do you see the room to let them in? I've got them here, the attendees. It says 3, but
Is there under participants? How are you seeing them, Debbie?
I'm
I just
seeing
see,
them.
I don't see anybody else trying to get in.
We just have to accept them in.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right.
Okay,
That's
I
what I was
got it.
doing. I clicked on participants. There's
Yeah.
3 attendees and
I
6
think I
panelists.
got him.
Okay,
Okay,
Oh, there they are.
Can you hear me now?
I don't
Hi,
know
Josh.
if you're,
Gotcha.
you have somebody named Michael, I think, that was looking to get in. too.
Yeah, that's my real name.
okay, so
That's my
Mike,
alias.
Mike, you
Okay.
must be the 9111 call, the 9111.
That's Josh.
No, Josh is.
no,
I've
no,
got
no,
his-
Josh has his phone for the audio. So did somebody send Mike the dial in, the agenda?
I just sent
Just
him
trying
the
to
link to get to the agenda.
Okay,
I'm trying to save the agenda and
I think going forward, we should include this as an Outlook invite to everybody. I'm sorry, Tom.
No, that's all right. We have these technical issues all the time.
Yeah, well, this is,
Hang up and try your call again. Message NJ204.
Okay, there's Mike Schmidt here.
You should see in the court system when you get a bunch of people who don't know what they're doing with Zoom. So,
No,
so-
it's just not working for me. So maybe I'm
so
not.
Pat, can you let
maybe I-
Mike in?
Maybe I wasn't made the panelist. It says you're all panelists. But
No, you have to
and then,
be-
you know what? It has, I am not a host.
You have to be
Pat
the
is a
host.
co-host with you, Tanya. I see it now.
You have to
Um,
be the
So,
host.
I don't know
Pat,
why
you're
I'm
gonna
not-
have to let him in.
I am not seeing him. Oh, there he is. Wait a second.
Ah,
Hi,
He
Mike.
just popped up.
There you go.
Okay,
right.
I am not a host.
So
Can
Josh,
Can the
and Mike,
person that's unidentified identify themselves?
that's Josh's number. It's his phone. He's doing his
Oh,
phone.
okay, great.
Yeah, I'd
right.
rather join by the computer, but. Yeah,
That's
it's
all
easier,
right.
but-
That's
It's
fine,
fine.
that's fine. So, Tom, Josh and Mike Schmidt are also members of the Alternative
Yep.
Energy Committee, and Fran Collins is our liaison with the advisory committee. And
Wow.
Fran, welcome. So Tom Callahan, I'm just gonna
Alright.
turn it over to you. Would you like
Alright.
to do a, introduction and then jump into, I will say, I'm very impressed by Tom and his willingness and,
Gonna go to my head.
initiative to move forward and to understand what the zoning bylaw does and doesn't do with respect to renewables and advise us on how this should be changed. He's given it to a judge to review. He's gotten feedback on that. He's going to discuss that. And then he's going to talk about the process for updating the zoning bylaws to explicitly address the renewables issue. So Tom, thank you for being here. You've done so
Okay.
much work already, and
Alright.
we appreciate you're doing it and not us. But we're here to help and we're here to listen and we're here to advise.
You are
and
actually
need
here
your
to
help,
do,
we're here to help.
no, you're actually here to do work. That's why I'm here. So.
Okay,
I appreciate it. I don't know, I know most of you, but not all of you. Again, I'm Tom Callahan. I'm Chair of the Zoning Bylaw Committee and Chair of the Planning Board. And the Zoning Bylaw Committee was created by the Selectmen last summer. It was the successor to the Zoning Bylaw Working Group, which was part of the Master Plan Committee. So what we're doing, and it came out of the master plan, is doing a complete reevaluation of the zoning bylaw. And as much as we add things and tweak things in the bylaw at almost every town meeting, it hasn't been comprehensively looked at in 36 years at least. And that's way beyond when it should be looked at. Experts have been telling us, maybe every 10 years, there should be a comprehensive review. So between the bylaw working group and the bylaw committee, we've been at this now for about 2 years. And so we're looking at the entire bylaw from front to back, and the plan has always been to do it in pieces rather than all at once. So there is 6 articles that are coming forward in the spring.
Chris, I don't know if you can hear this. This is Fran Collins. I can hear you people on the Zoom meeting, but you're coming through loud and clear.
Okay.
Good.
Fran heard the spiel last night, or a variation of the spiel last night, but so we are looking at the whole bylaw. We're going to do it in 2 pieces in the spring. We are doing 6 articles that are mostly on the administrative articles and laying the groundwork. And then in the fall, we're going to do a lot of the substantive change to the really meaty parts of the bylaw. And mostly the core provisions are the uses and the dimensions, and those really haven't been looked at since 1986. With respect to your committee and your articles 19 and 20, we had hoped originally to do these in the spring because we didn't think any changes would be controversial. They'd be easy to deal with and get them out of the way, but circumstances didn't let us get to that point. So, we are looking to change articles 19 and 20 in the fall. And the fall is going to have a big slate. We're doing 6 articles in the spring. It could be as many as a dozen in the fall. It's going to be a big thing. But from the beginning, when I looked at this, I've always wanted to, sub out work where I could to other committees. Your committee originally wrote these 2 bylaws, so very frankly, I'm looking for you to really take the lead on suggestions for a rewrite of them to save us. We only have 5 people on the zoning bylaw committee when we're allocated 7, and there's a lot of work that's coming down the pike. So we try to distribute the workload as much as possible. So when the bylaw working group was working without town council at the time, when the bylaw committee was formed last summer, the selectmen made sure we had access to our town council, KP Law, and we are working with Judith Cutler, and she is the former Chief Justice of the Land Court. And for those of you who don't know what the Land Court is, it's a specialized trial court that deals with property issues and most prominently zoning appeals. So she is like an expert on zoning law. So she's helping us write the changes that we want to do. I'm sorry, there's some noise and some voice in the background, but so one of the things KP Law did from the beginning was do what we have called a diagnostic, which is some 30 pages where they went over every article in the bylaw. And the zoning bylaw has 22 articles. Wind is 19, solar is 20. And they made recommended changes to each and every one of them. And then separately from the working group, I had gone through the whole bylaw, and to just start as a discussion point, I basically took my incredible amount of free time and rewrote it and made suggestions of changes, including to these 2 articles. So there's 2 things that are in front of you: is what Judge Cutler has recommended are necessary changes, and then what I have as suggested changes. And what I'm asking you folks to do is take a look at both of those. And if you have any other changes you suggest or comment on those, get those back to us. And given our work schedule, the town meeting in the fall is going to be in early December, just like the schedule for the spring. We had the spring article ready at the end of February. We rolled them out to the public at the end of February. We're going through the process of review by the boards. So we're looking at a timetable where these need to be done and written by the end of September, and then we roll them out for the public and go through the board review process. So that's the time frame. The sooner these are done, the better, obviously, because of the workload we have. But you have in front of you tonight both the judges, the excerpts from the diagnostic relating to Article 19 and 20. And you also have my rewrite, and forget about how I numbered it. There was a suggestion, part of the earlier work was we're going to reorganize the bylaw when it's all said and done. And so, in my vision, wind and solar get combined under one article in different sections of one article. That remains to be seen, but I would mostly ask you to focus on the substance of what I propose, not the organization of it. With respect to the judges' changes, I mean, again, it comes from your experience as the chief judge of the land court and being attuned to what's going on in state law and decisional law. And with respect to the changes we're proposing for the spring, we basically incorporating everything she says, because in her diagnostic, she's looking at the flaws, looking at the redundancies. That's part of the objective of rewriting the bylaw, is to clean it up. It's, you know, even though we might not have comprehensively looked at it since '86, we've added a lot of stuff since then, including these two articles. It's an organizational mess. There's definitions all over the place. A lot of new stuff was added without really being conscious of what was written before. So the whole intent of this is to clean up the bylaw, as well as make certain changes to deal with modern realities. But with respect to the judge's diagnostic comments, we have pretty much taken those as gospel and changes that do need to be made. And if you read through those, particularly on the solar side of things, there are some case law decisions that have been made that we do need to comply with. And one of those is to expand solar, how much where it's available in town. There's, I don't know who's got the background noise, but I wish that would, if I may ask that to stop. I don't know where it's coming from.
Maybe everybody can put themselves on mute.
Yeah, if everybody, yeah, for the moment, that would be great. So I think the judge's comments all speak for themselves, and I'll be glad to answer some questions, but particularly on the solar, we have to look at expanding the availability of putting in solar installations in town. The interpretation of a law that had nothing to do with solar, a case decision, is that you know, the example was the city of Waltham was restricting it to 2% of its area where you could have solar installations, and it's being interpreted that that's too restrictive. So, you know, and my
Excuse me, Josh, could you put yourself on mute, please?
Yeah, something's going on.
You freaking kidding me, guys? I am on mute, guys.
Well, all right. I don't know where it's coming from, but
Josh, you don't have a little red thing saying you're on mute.
your phone number is on mute, but your face and picture is not on mute. So there you go. Thank you, Josh. So now, from my perspective, when I looked at this, and this was before Judge Cutler got involved, before we got the diagnostic, I mean, one of the other initiatives that the bylaw rewrite intends to do is to bring in provisions regarding climate change and resiliency. We had a public forum in December where that was discussed, and we had people from MAPC speak to us. There is a model bylaw out there that we will probably work from. And so, you know, our existing wind and solar goes into the whole thing about dealing with the future and climate change. And the focus of my edits was simply to increase or expand the availability of wind and solar energy uses in the town. With respect to the solar, I just put in there that they're allowed on individual houses. This is happening, but the bylaw doesn't actually clearly say that they're permissible. So I just wanted to clear that up. And the judge has a number of comments about height, setback, you know, and measurements that we would have to apply to that. As far as wind goes, my major proposal was to not just have giant wind turbines, but to allow for individual building-based turbines. And I threw in an arbitrary size and megawatts or something that, you know, I'm no expert on it. So I just think that it's something that should be offered to the community. We don't do that right now. I know we restrict where wind turbines can go and solar panels can go. I'm told that effectively has killed other wind turbines in town, but you know, on an individual building scale, I think that's something we should consider just in the overall plan to deal with climate change and resiliency. So I'm throwing those ideas out there, and I welcome any ideas that you have to change the bylaw. But I guess I'll stop and take any questions anybody has, but again, what the judge is recommending, I think we absolutely have to do some tweaks to these two articles, but how far beyond that we go is I'm looking to you to make recommendations to the zoning bylaw committee because you're the experts on it, not us, and then we'll go from there. So,
May I ask a question?
sure.
Sure, go ahead, Steve.
Okay, Tom, Tanya forwarded your email,
Yep.
but it didn't have the attachments, so I guess we weren't able to look at what the suggested changes are. I
No,
wonder,
you should have
Tanya,
gotten hold on, you should have gotten those. So if the email I sent did not have the attachments, I'll resend it.
Yeah, I
You
thought
know,
that was
I didn't
sent.
get-
I thought that
I
was
didn't-
sent last week, but
oh, well, maybe I'm looking at the wrong email, but it does have your notes in there. It says,
Steve, I just sent it to you.
okay, all right.
Anybody else not have it?
Yeah, I don't have it. That wasn't attached to the email.
yeah. So the two documents are the excerpts from KP Law's diagnostic for Articles 19 and 20, and then there's mine is it's titled as new Article 9 because back a year ago when we were talking about reorganization, these things would move into a new Article 9. So forget the numbering of them, but just look at the substance of them.
Okay, I may be able to get a little bit of background, since I think I'm the only one still on the committee who was around when the original wind bylaws were passed. And I just recently reread them since I knew you were going to talk about them. On the wind bylaw, restrictions, I think, make it impossible to put any large turbines in Cohasset because of the setback rules. For instance, it has to be, if you measure to the top of the not nacelle, that you have to be further than 1.5 times that distance from the nearest property line, say. And they also have setbacks from the nearest residential home and other things. So that, and by the way, those restrictions were put in there kind of on the rewrite of the wind bylaw. Somehow or other, the Alternative Energy Committee got two people got appointed to the committee who were opponents of wind in Cohasset, and so we changed a lot to make it impossible. Somehow, I don't know, I was upset about that, but anyways, that's what happened. So I would like to see if it's possible. I did look at the maps of Cohasset to see if it might be possible. It looks to me like there are a couple of places where you could put wind turbines. It wouldn't pose a problem. But anyways, the community was dead set against this. There was so much opposition that we gave up on it. Now on the solar, the only bylaw that I could recall was the one that was introduced by our fire chief at the time. And that was to have require setbacks on the panels on any roof so that firemen would have access to the roof if necessary. And that was to be consistent with, I think, a state law or a federal law standard. Anyways, those are the, there's a couple of comments about wind and solar.
Yeah, and I'm aware of the history, and I remember the opposition when turbines were proposed for Turkey Hill and people coming with, oh, look at, this is what it would look like from the beach. You could see these things. I'm one of these people that I don't think turbines are offensive any more so than the polyglot of wires and telephone poles I see in our village, which, 120 years ago, people screamed about those things too. I mean, change is coming and we have to face it. So again, the point here is not for the bylaw committee to take the initiatives on any rewrite or ideas. I'm trying to pass that along to you. So, if you think it's time to try to bring back, the original intent of the bylaws, do so.
I also want to
The
make
judges made it clear though on the solar that we do have to make some changes and so for as an example in Article 4 of the bylaw, that's where we deal with uses, and we have a table of uses, and there's going to be quite a bit of reform to that for a number of reasons, but she's basically told us we're going to need to have a column about solar uses and deal with that there, because the case law is such that we have to expand the opportunity for solar installations rather than restrict them. Wind is
Okay, I just want to make a comment about small scale solar on top of individual buildings. The financial analyses I've seen on several occasions say that that doesn't make sense financially. You're much better off putting up solar panels than a wind turbine on top of your building, whatever.
Yeah.
But anyways, I certainly see no objection to allowing them
well,
if somebody
again,
wanted to
like
do
I
it.
said, we allow solar panels, but yet actually in the bylaw, we don't permit it on individual structures. And I'm just saying, let's close that little loophole. And on the
Oh, I'm
individual,
sorry, I think I misspoke. I meant the wind turbine,
yeah, and
small
the
wind.
individual wind turbines is really up to you. I mean, I don't know that makes sense or not. I know that there will be people who object to seeing a wind turbine off at the top of a roof or as a standing flagpole type structure in someone's backyard. And there's, of course, there's things we can do with setbacks and height limits to deal with that. But I'm just throwing it out as an idea because, our future is that we have to obviously look for forms of energy that are other than, carbon based. So, I'm leaving this all to you to come up. I'm the only one on the committee that's come up with the ideas. So I'm throwing it out to you to come up with ideas. So it isn't just me, that's for sure.
And Tom, is your objective to make the bylaws more restrictive or more expansive? Like what is your
All right, well-
objective as we're
Well,
developing?
the judge's objective in her comments and the diagnostic is to make it legally compliant and clear up confusing language and confusion with other parts of the bylaw to the extent they exist. My intent in my proposal is to expand it. And also you'll see a lot of sections deleted because there's another proposal to move out a lot of administrative and permit, application type stuff out of the bylaw into regulations that can be changed more quickly and can deal with the state of art of applications. There's just a lot of fluff that I don't think needs to be in a bylaw that can be moved out of a bylaw. If you have something to make an application, you have to do this. You want to change that because the state of the art of an application changes, such as we're moving from paper to computer or online applications. To change it in a bylaw, you need a 2/3 vote at town meeting. You change a regulation, the planning board can do it on a majority vote at a public hearing that the planning board sets. So a lot of what's in both the wind and solar bylaw, I think, can get moved out just for administrative ease of dealing with it in the future as we go forward. But my intent was to expand the use of both as much as we possibly can, because I think that's part of a climate change philosophy.
And that's
And
refreshing if you
we are
write
intent. We are intent. By the way, we are intent on bringing in a climate change / resiliency bylaw. And I learned the other day that Concom is doing the same with respect to their regulations. They're looking at that as well. So,
Mike Schmidt, did you have a question?
Yeah, thanks, Tanya. Thanks, Tom, for presenting this. I'm 100% against trying to allow large scale or small scale wind into the beautiful town of Cohasset. I mean, it's just absolutely not the place. There's many instances up and down the East Coast of these turbines coming down. Falmouth, Kingston, they have a broken one in Hanover, Situate's restricted. I mean, these are really doing damage to people's quality of life. I work with 2 wind turbines every day. One of them's coming down because financially it doesn't make sense anymore. So it's lasted its 20 years, but the future is not onshore wind. The future is offshore wind. They're talking 3,000 megawatts offshore. It's not going to be, smaller, medium scale, 1 or 2 turbines in the town of Cohasset. I mean, it's just, I think we're insane to try to change anything like this. We should make it stronger to keep, you know, wind out of Cohasset is not the case. That's my thoughts.
Thanks, Mike. How do other people feel about the wind?
I mean, personally and philosophically, I'd argue that to the death with you, Mike, but I'm not here to influence you on a policy one way or another. But, you know, basically, again, my intent here is to punt these two articles to you folks to rewrite them. At least the first crack at rewriting them, and the bylaw committee and ultimately the planning board will decide on these things. But, you know.
Yep. Fran, did you want to say something?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. A point I made at town meeting a couple of years ago, and it needs to be stressed again, is that the solar roof panels, solar panels anywhere, but particularly roof panels, are always live. They're always hot. So even the moon can generate, you know, a full moon can generate electricity through these panels. So that, as Chief Sylvia, Fire Chief Sylvia said, we got to make sure that there is access so that firefighters can get on the roof without risking their life from electrocution. Doesn't matter whether the switch is turned off or whatever, as long as there's light hitting those panels, they are hot, generating voltage. So we got to make sure that anything that goes into the solar panel bylaw reflects that, whether it's on a commercial building or whether it's on a residential building.
Yeah, so I think that was passed already to make sure that the firefighters have access. I think that was raised a few years ago and passed. And I think the point is we shouldn't do anything to reverse that. And in fact, continue to make sure that people understand the importance of that. And maybe that has to be part of, I don't know if that's within the permitting now or that needs to be looked at.
Well, like I just said, I didn't see that individual building panels were even permitted. They're being allowed.
That
And-
is not in the zoning.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting we deviate from that at all, but we should put it in the bylaw and where we have accommodations for fire access and the diagnostic mentions issues of height and other things. We should just have those all in the bylaw so it's very clear that what people can do.
So
Yeah,
Tom,
and I think, Tom, there's two things. So what Pat's talking about is already not in the bylaws, Pat. It's in another code, building code.
Is it stretch code? Is that what it is?
It's not a stretch code. It is
Oh.
specifically in the building code, which says what you can
Oh,
do
okay.
in buildings. Chief Sylvia put forward the language that was recommended under some standard, and that was voted on, approved, and it is in the building code, not the zoning. Zoning's about where you can put things and what, you know.
Yeah, you don't necessarily incorporate building code stuff into the zoning bylaw, but if it's appropriate to say it, we could, you know, so.
Yeah, so we just have to make sure that is already approved. It's already in the building code. The building code is very specific about the some of the characteristics of solar panels on the roof as recommended by Chief Sylvia and approved by the town. And I think that that's very properly in the building code. But I think what Tom's talking about is zoning. What can you put where? And if there's some type of sizing limitations, not for purposes of the building code or safety code or fire code, but for purposes of zoning, that is what we should be discussing and thinking about.
If you look at the judge's comments about, for example, on the solar, she says that section 20.8 sets a maximum height for a solar panel at 15 feet. So since we don't deal with this on the individual house scale, that's probably talking about a commercial scale, like at the dump or something where there's a big solar array. But, you know, we need to think about whether, you know, how high off the roof an individual one can go. If we start allowing individual panel arrays in a side yard, there's one in Norwell that I pass by every day to and from the office now that somebody has they happen to have a large side yard. That's where their solar array is. It's not on their roof. You know, those are the kinds of things we need to think about from a zoning perspective. you know, are we going to allow these? Where are we going to allow these? And if we do allow them, what kind of height restrictions? But she also cautions that we can't be overly restrictive because there's case law that now says you're being overly restrictive, you are obstructing use of solar, and that violates state law. State law is much more in favor of solar than wind. So there's some favorable court decisions or statutes that try to promote solar.
So Tom, what would anything, can you speak to that with respect to wind? There's a case laws suggesting a level of restriction.
Well, for example, the case law on wind, this case she cites with respect to solar, the actual case itself dealt with a church steeple, not with a solar array, but it's being applied. The height limit, a town being too restrictive on height limits is being applied now to all kinds of contexts. So if we went in the direction, for example, that you could put a wind turbine on a flagpole, you know, in your yard at an individual building scale, we'd have to be conscious of, you know, how much we restrict the height on that. I don't think we're allowing things to be 60 feet high, like a, you know, however high a commercial turbine is, but you know, we'd have to be very careful about that. We couldn't say it'd be only 10 feet high because then it would be practically unusable. So you'd be restricting it overly. So, you know, on the wind, you have to make the decision either. My idea would go to an individual scale. I understand Mike's point. And then on the commercial scale, do we allow them to possibly happen in places in town where beyond what we allow them now?
So can I just ask, is in a lot of these cases, because the technology is changing so rapidly and we can't anticipate a lot of, you know, what things are going to look like and where they're going to go, is there a way that you could handle this, a lot of this through the regulatory side, the regulations, and not try to, I mean, I think, you know, to say that people have the right to have solar on their house, but as far as getting into, I mean, I just see so many things changing that, you know, that we may want to move with the times, and if we did a as you said, with regulations, with just a hearing and the planning board voting, it seems the easiest.
What needs to be in the bylaw is at least what you're allowing, where you're allowing it, and probably the size limits of it. What I had proposed to move to regulations is how you apply for a permit, because that may change. The state of the art of what you submit may change. And even things such as your monitoring maintenance plan, abandonment, and your decommissioning, those all may change with the state of the art. So I'm a proponent to put those into regulations. I don't think they need to be in a bylaw. Your definitions, you know, one of our objectives is to move all the definitions into one place rather than scattered all over the bylaw. But a lot of the definitions with these two articles, you know, in court, we deal with the concept of plain and ordinary meeting. I don't think we have to define what I don't even know how to pronounce it, a nacelle and a set, whatever you call it. You know, there's not, some of these things we don't have to define. They're industry standard terms that we don't need to necessarily define. So there's a lot of fluff in here that what I consider fluff that I would get rid of. But, you know, the very basics have to be in a bylaw. What you can do, where you can do it, and what are the size restrictions and placement restrictions on it. Those would have to be in the bylaw.
Imagine there are other towns that have example bylaws that we can look at.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I imagine when we did ours, we probably looked at others, and believe me, our philosophy is to look and borrow as much as possible. Like, you know, I'm not a big fan of reinventing the wheel. And with respect to the climate change and resiliency, the MAPC has got a model bylaw, and we're probably going to start working from that. You know, Cohasitize that bylaw to make it specific to us, but why reinvent the wheel and try to create something new? And the good thing about, you know, having KP Law work with us, they represent a lot of towns, and so they have access, easy access to looking at other bylaws and see what other people are doing.
So Tom, do you know when you want, you said by September or?
Well, I'm not gonna, no, I don't want to give you that kind of leash with all due respect. Today I was going through an outline to prepare the bylaw committee for, the next step in the fall town meeting. We are going to have a lot on our plate. I don't look at these articles with all due respect to being controversial or difficult to deal with change. In a perfect world, this would all be wrapped up and ready to go June, July. And, I don't know, unless we're proposing some kind of radical change, I don't know that we need to bring this out to the public like in a forum. We did talk about, climate change in a forum in December. We didn't really focus on the wind and solar bylaw so much, but if we need to roll this out to the public and get feedback from the public and what they think, we can do that. But I'd like to get these two kind of out of the way written so that my committee can focus on some of the bigger issues we have to take on. But September is the end of September is the absolute end date that these things need to be written. And whatever you come up with ideas, we're going to pass along to Judge Cutler to actually translate them into text and warrant articles and bylaw provisions. So you give us the ideas and the objectives, and we'll take it from there and actually turning them into a bylaw.
Okay, so we will work on getting a final draft with a presentation from this committee to your committee in June. We should probably plan on doing a joint meeting in June and July.
Okay.
So we can coordinate that time between us. And there may be something before that where you and I should coordinate offline on how to incorporate our task masters, if you would, which include the select board, and just making sure that they're, we're going to make sure they give us a blessing to work on this, because we can't do anything without their authorization. It seems like a natural fit that this is stuff we should look at.
I don't think you'll have a problem, but if you do, let me know. I mean,
I don't think we'll have a problem either.
They keep reminding us that we're a subcommittee of theirs and, blah, 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 blah. But I don't worry about jurisdictional lines. They're not doing the heavy lifting and they're not going to do the heavy lifting. So it's up to us to do it. But as you look at these things, the judge's diagnostic comments accept those as things that have to be done. My ideas are just ideas, and I'm looking for your ideas at whether or if these bylaws should change and how.
Yep. Okay, so this is great, Tom. Thank you so much for taking the lead on this and bringing it to us. For this group, I guess I'm looking for how do we want to proceed? And Tom, at this point, feel free to stay on. Do we want to create a subcommittee that takes the lead on looking through these bylaws and what Tom's already done and coming in with some high-level content suggestions, and then maybe based on what this committee thinks about the high-level content suggestions, taking a cut at the drafting? Or Tom, do you want us to draft, or do you just want us to come?
You should draft as much as you can and you're comfortable with, but obviously we're on everything, we're deferring to the judge for the final authorship and tweaking so that it's all legal and passable,
Yeah.
So.
Okay, good. Steve, you had a question?
I think that as far as solar arrays, rooftop solar goes, or even, ground-based solar, the main limitation and problem is the interconnect issue. The fact that maybe several homes, adjacent homes, are feeding off the same transformer, and the transformer can only handle a limited amount. I don't know what, 10 kilowatts or something. So if one guy puts his array up first, then the other two are stuck. They can't put an array up, and that's because of questions about who should pay for a new transformer. So it has to do with interconnect problems. And I don't know, so, people will seem to be afraid to put up.
The bylaw isn't going to deal with that. The bylaw is not going to deal with those
exactly.
technical
But
issues.
that's what's holding up solar in Cohasset is
That's a whole nother
these
story. Yeah, that's a bigger issue beyond us. But zoning is really, what are we permitting to have happen? And then the technology may need to catch up with it. And
Yeah, I've never heard of anybody not being able to put up solar because they violated some zoning regulation or whatever. But
No, because most towns, I think right now are treating rooftop solar arrays as just another appendage like a chimney or an antenna, and they're not saying you can have them or not have them. They're just letting them happen by just saying they're, just some other appendage to a house that's allowable. And we could go that route too. Right? We can continue the way we're doing. I just personally think it's smart to just say, yes, they're allowed in the Bible.
How about canopy solar? Does that have to be addressed?
What is canopy solar?
It'd be over a parking lot. It's like a raised solar panel that covers the parking lot. There's one in West Hingham.
Yeah, I think that, that would be treated as a structure under our bylaws. So you'd have to look at the structure limits that apply to that particular piece of property. And, if it's, I mean, I don't know that there's too many restrictions where it says that a particular piece of property cannot have a structure on it. So right now, something like that would have to comply with the current zoning for that particular piece of property as in terms of height of a structure and the setbacks of a structure. So I don't think there's any impediment to doing that right now, but if we want to get very specific and, for example, say that a canopy over a parking lot is as of right, as opposed to perhaps a special permit use, that might be something we want to do. Make it easier for people to do it rather than make them go through a permitting process for it.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, and we can single that out. We can distinguish a solar canopy structure from other types of structure to single it out for special treatment and perhaps preferred treatment.
Yeah, I just feel that, rooftop solar is harmless to neighbors or the area. The canopy solar, I know we had some people were upset with it on was that Sawyer Street, the elementary schools. But wind, I mean, it can really affect someone's quality of life. It can really affect their property value. So I can't swallow that pill. It's just.
I get you. I won't debate it, but I get you.
Yeah, we'll debate it, and we'll discuss it within this committee, and I think we know the different technologies, and as we look through what the bylaws currently do, and the judge's comments about what as the minimum we should do, and then think within ourselves about what makes sense, we can address it in the context of these different types of technologies that we know are already here, but also recognizing that there are new technologies that could happen.
Right. And in connection with subbing out this work to you to lessen our workload a bit, there's nothing that prevents you from looking at other town bylaws. You can also go to MAPC and see what bylaw, I believe they have model wind and solar bylaws. That probably was the model for ours at some point, but you can do all that, and I would encourage you to do that. The more work you can do, it takes a workload off of us again, because we have a lot on our plate for this fall.
Mm-hmm. All right, so for this group, Steve, you have your hand up.
A question for Tom here. I'm a little bit fuzzy about the line between zoning regulations and building codes. So can you kind of clarify what would fall in each bucket or where that line is drawn?
Well, building codes don't get incorporated into the zoning bylaw. We don't get the zoning bylaws do not get into the specifics that you see in building codes, and they're two completely separate animals.
Okay, but it sounded like the solar thing, restriction on setbacks on rooftop solar. It sounds like that got into
those are going to be
building
those,
code, right?
Setbacks and things are a zoning issue.
Zoning issue?
No. You're not talking about setbacks, Steve. You're talking about the amount of rooftop that has to be available for the fire.
Yeah, to allow space to walk around the panels on the roof.
Yeah, that's a building code issue. That's,
So
okay.
it's
I mean,
specifically about the building. What can
yeah, I mean, could we have a zoning bylaw that says that a rooftop solar array can only cover X percent of the roof? Sure, we could, but that's more of a building code issue.
Okay,
I mean, I don't, it's hard for me to sit here and describe what the fine line between the two is, but building code issues don't find their way into the bylaw or vice versa, so. The bylaw is mostly concerned, can you have that solar array? If it's gonna be on a building, how high above the roof line can it be? And, if you're going to have one that's set on the ground, like the new one in Norwell, it's on River Street, you should drive by it, it's pretty big. But these people had a giant side yard, so they had the room for it. But like, if you were gonna do one of those, then you would that's a structure, so you would have to then get into setbacks from property lines and from neighboring structures and all of that stuff.
and that zoning?
That's a zoning issue, right? How it gets built and the technical stuff of it, that's building code stuff.
And I think Steve, really on the zoning bylaws, we talk through the details of this. We'll need to keep our zoning bylaw hat on and think about it as this is what can go on a property. What are the conditions under which it can go on that property? Are there any limits? Are there any rights? And anything that's non-explicit right is a special permit, right, Tom? It doesn't mean you can't do it unless it's
Well,
prohibited.
no, if it's prohibited, you'd have to get a variance, and variances in this town you're not going to get unless there's something very extraordinary, and that's the way they should be.
Mhm.
But yes, in the bylaw, then we can say, for example, we can say solar is going to be allowed in the residential districts, but in commercial districts, it has to be by special permit, or we could do vice versa. But that's when that would come up. But if it's not allowed at all, if it doesn't say it's allowed somewhere at all, then it's prohibited, and then you're looking at a variance to try to get it in.
I think it's interesting to note that the new specialized stretch code and the regular revised stretch code actually requires solar arrays, rooftop solar arrays in many situations.
No.
I
It
can see
doesn't-
where you might have a conflict between the zoning law and
Well-
the building code.
Yeah, and you and I think a couple of weeks ago briefly talked about the stretch code. The stretch code and the extra, whatever it's called, is not going to find its way into the zoning bylaw. It is strictly a building code issue. But as the
Right,
judges-
but
as
if
the
it were
judge-
passed, it would
No, but as
require solar
the judge's
panels.
diagnostic is pointing out, especially with respect to solar, not so much wind, there is state law that is saying you have to encourage these things. And if you're overly restrictive on solar, you're running into a problem. So our
Right.
bylaw cannot go down the road of being more restrictive. It has to be looking at opportunities to be actually less restrictive and allow it as much as we possibly can.
Exactly.
Yes. So the nice thing is, Steve, we're doing both, right? We're going to propose that our focus for this year includes the bylaws and the stretch code.
Yeah.
That the stretch code was voted on last month, that this committee did agree we need to do more education of ourselves and others on the stretch code. And then from that education, we can make informed recommendations about the zoning bylaws with respect to renewables to make sure they're consistent. So these do go nicely hand in hand. What I would like is for this committee to decide if this is something we want to do. And then if it is something we want to do, how we want to go about doing it. Right? I think, do we want to have a subcommittee? Do we want an individual to take the lead on it and come back and make recommendations on content and have discussion? But that's what's at this committee right now. So I guess at this point, is there any discussion about whether or not this is something this committee wants to do or not do?
Well,
I think it's up to us to offer an opinion on this. It's well within our charter, right? So I think we, to the extent that we have the capability and the knowledge to offer some help with this, I think we should.
Yeah, I think Pat's right on target on that. I mean, if not us, who?
Yeah, that's the whole point. We didn't want to write this all, redo anything on our own. You guys wrote these two bylaws originally, so I feel very strongly about deferring to your opinion and your expertise to help us with the rewrite.
Okay, so is there anybody who does not want this committee to do it and wants to express why? All right, then I'd entertain a motion that this committee take on the, and again, I guess it's to take on the education of ourselves with respect to changes to a bylaw concerning renewable energy and go forward to the select board for approval to do that.
What are we asking the select board for
Yeah,
approval to do?
what are you asking the select board to
We're
do?
not authorized to do anything. We go before the select board every quarter to report on what we're doing. If it's within our scope, we can do it, but
Well, how'd you write the bylaw to begin with?
it was under a different structure.
All
It
right.
was a different constituted entity that was actually established solely for wind
All
originally.
right. Well, if you need to reach out to the board, just copy me on that so I can just say to the board, from the ZBC's perspective, we're
I'm
looking
not
to.
worried they're not gonna want us to
No,
do
I know,
it.
but I just, again, they don't get deep into the weeds in this stuff, and I don't want it to complicate anything.
It's not. We're just making sure we have the authority to go
Yeah,
forward. and
all right, understood.
But first, we need this committee to agree we should do it. Sounds like we have the votes for that. And I'm putting it on subject to authorization by the select board to focus our time on this.
Okay.
Okay,
Can I just say,
Yep.
that I think we should go beyond educating though. I feel like the way you phrase that, I feel like educate and recommend. I
Yeah.
no,
definitely,
and I meant to be educate ourselves and recommend changes
okay.
to the bylaw with respect to renewable energy,
Yes.
subject to approval by the select board.
I'd like to make a motion to propose to the select board that we assist the zoning committee with new language for the bylaws related to solar and wind in the town of Cohasset, subject to their review and approval.
You mean with respect to renewables generally or specifically solar and wind?
I
Well,
guess
right
generally,
Right now, those are the only two things we have in the bylaw. I have a separate ask to you when you finish this, but with respect to.
I'd like it to be general, Pat, maybe. If
Yeah.
you could. So if you want to rephrase,
okay, so I'd like to make a motion to propose to the select board that we help the zoning committee with rewriting the bylaws to incorporate the use of general renewable energy options in the town of Cohasset.
Perfect.
Phrased
yep, that's
appropriate.
perfect.
Just a question here. Our last meeting, did we pass a motion to do something similar with the
Okay,
building
okay,
code?
Steve, we have a motion on the floor. So do I have a second? And then we can have discussion.
I'll
Okay,
second.
Chris, seconds. All right, so now it's time for discussion. Steve, did you have a question?
Yes, last month, did we pass a similar motion to approach the select board with proceeding with a investigation of building codes?
Yes, and that was in the minutes,
Okay, all right, good, thank you.
which we approved. So hopefully we reviewed them. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All right, it sounds like we've had discussion already, and so we can do a roll call vote.
Russell Davidson, aye.
Steve Winter, aye.
Debbie
Good.
Cook, aye.
Pat Gooding, aye.
Josh Taunton, aye.
Mike Schmidt, aye.
Tanya Bodell, aye. All right, motion passes unanimously. Tom, thank you. You said you have
No, can I ask you one more thing that's occurred to me while we've been discussing this? So separate from these two warrant bylaw articles, As I said, we are going to take on an initiative to do a climate change / resiliency bylaw. This is just my idea at the moment. I haven't even pitched it to my own committee, but I'd like, since Concom is going to be involved in a similar effort, I'd like to bring Concom into the process again to, not work at cross purposes, but also to sub out some work. Would your committee want representation in any effort to craft a climate change / resiliency bylaw? And that would
So-
just be one or two of you to just be part of the discussions and the meetings and helping write that. That's going to be a new initiative that we
Are
do
you
not have.
creating a committee? Is that?
We're
Wait,
not,
great.
probably not, it's probably just going to be an informal grouping of bylaw committee, town council, Concom, working together to get this bylaw. And like I said, we will probably be working from the MAPC model bylaw. I just think that's the path of, right now, the path of least resistance to writing something completely new. But it just occurred to me while I was sitting there that maybe your committee would like to be part of that process to write a new bylaw.
Right. And so the answer to that is, I don't think we have the information to make a decision right now. Until we understand exactly what the charges of the informal committee that you're looking to create. There is a separate resiliency committee that is focused on climate change and resiliency.
Oh, well, then that's probably who we'll end up working with.
Right. And that's Tim Davis.
Oh.
So that's not necessarily, but that said, I could conceive of overlap, and I could
Yeah.
also conceive that this committee might want a liaison, so that to the extent there is anything tied to
Yeah,
renewable energy,
that's
energy
probably what I'm
efficiency.
thinking of, is just really a liaison and nothing in a formal committee structure. We're not setting up a separate committee for this. But
I volunteer to be the
Okay,
liaison.
Steve, we don't even know what he's setting up yet, so we can't do a
I don't care, I
volunteer.
volunteer.
Okay,
that's good to know. That's all I need to know for now. Thank you.
all right, excellent. All right, well, good. Tom, thank you again for all
All right.
of your hard work and for coming to us on this. I think we're very excited to be able to assist clearly from the unanimous vote. And I think this is squarely and beautifully said, if not us who. So
All right. Well, I
Tom, thank you
appreciate-
for coming and presenting and letting us go through the process with respect to this committee. And we look forward to working with you on
all
this.
right, me too, and thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.
All right,
Very good.
bye-bye.
All right, everybody, I want to pound through the rest of the stuff. Next is the data. Josh, you sent around the data. Do you want to just give a high level report on our solar energy array
Sure.
savings and charging station?
Yep. Yeah, so for looking at last month, in February, we do was $10,000 at the array, which is at 41 cents. So last year in February, we got 3,700. So we're seeing some big gains from the array these days. Did you want me to go through the charge point right now too? I don't have the. What's next? Do you want to talk more about the array?
No, I mean, I think the key is we're making huge money, huge savings because of how expensive electricity is. And, the good news is we've been trying to get more solar into the town. The bad news is we've been stymied. So our savings could be that much more if we'd done it. And I think it's a lesson to the town. We have to, continue to try to make these things happen.
Agreed.
These things being solar energy arrays. Okay, Josh, what about the EVs?
Yes, the EV, as you can see on that, everything's been pretty much stable, from a usage, and just looking at my notes here, but the one thing that was kind of disappointing, they wiped out all of our at the bottom where it says how much carbon we saved. It doesn't show that. It used to have a lifetime of the chargers and how much carbon we've been saving by using those. So I'll reach out to them on that and find out kind of where that tracking is today.
That would be great. Okay. Next is community aggregation, maybe a 5-minute update, unless there's something of content that we need to discuss, and I don't think there's anything to vote on. But what's going on with our community choice aggregation?
We have to wait till the end of the month to get a report from Good Energy on what the signups have been. But I think Debbie might want to give us a briefing on our outreach and plans for the EcoFest, et cetera.
Yeah, well, you've got agenda items on that too,
Yeah, we
right?
do.
But one of the things basically Steve and I've been talking extensively, and so we're now sort of thinking we're in kind of a mid education mode. People already have had their big bill from National Grid, and so next month they're going to get the lower bid. And this also goes along with my talk about what I want to do at the table at the health fair. There is a calculator on the website that is really, really good. And I wanted to kind of focus on that for the next couple of weeks, and have people actually go in there, and because they've already got their high bill, they can anticipate what their bill would have been if we had direct energy. And then they can also see, if they opt up, how it's not much different. So it's kind of a transitional thing before we make a bigger push about Penny for the Planet, which we'd like to do starting in early April, culminating around Earth Day, is to push that. But using this calculator as something that people can check out and get some more interest again in the program. I wrote a blurb, I sent it to Steve today, I don't know if you saw it, and for Justin to see if what he thought about putting in the paper. I'm hearing that background noise again. Anyway, that's our thinking. And can I just go right ahead into the rec fair?
Are there any questions about community choice aggregation?
So,
Okay, so Debbie, go ahead, Chris.
Deborah, when you say that we're going to be doing education, is our role to recommend to the town that they should do education, or do we actually do the education?
It's really fallen to us. Justin's been really helpful, the communications director. He's been very, very helpful. He doesn't initiate anything really without sort of getting a little bit of, so we've been working as a team, and I think it's worked out. And I think, thank goodness, everybody got a really big bill that probably is going to make them refocus now on what we're doing, and I think we should capitalize on that. So basically that's what I'm hoping people will see this on social media or whatever. Just the link is in there, they can go directly to that calculator, just put in their kilowatt hours, in 2 seconds they can see the difference of National Grid, direct energy, and the 3 programs. And then we thought that we would actually give them the information right then and there about talking about opting up, now that you've seen how close they are from that calculator. So that's our strategy now, is the next phase.
Debbie, what's the deadline for opting up?
It never ends.
Oh, okay. So anybody can go, if they're on community choice, they can always go up to the higher level.
Yes. Yeah. So and part of this, I think, the first thing is to get over. I know, Steve and I have regretted so much that we weren't able to do the advanced education that we wanted to do. We really got knocked at the knees on that. But I think things are settling down now, hopefully. And And so now it's time to sort of gently go into seeing about trying to opt up. We've been talking about having a, I've mentioned this before, a contest with, and Situate and Westwood are definitely in. I don't know what's ever happened to Marshfield. They just haven't, we just haven't been able to connect. But they're willing, they're all interested in having a contest. And that's just another way to sort of have a fun little thing to get people, you know, like Westwood now is doing it. And it gives it even more credibility, I think, when you realize other towns are doing it. And, you know, and the only thing obviously we can offer is like a certificate to the winning town. But that would be the third phase after this middle phase of the calculator, and then the next phase would be a little contest. All sort of gimmicky as to get people to just to be paying attention and to hopefully get a little more enthusiasm.
Oh, just a point of clarification, not only can people upgrade at any time they want to, but they can also enroll. There's no deadline on enrollment to begin with.
Right. Okay, good. Well, nice job, the two of you. Amazing marketing, amazing bringing this over the finish line.
Not so much on the marketing, but we've tried.
I read all the 143 comments back and forth, and there were people saying they've been talking about this for 3 years. Haven't you been paying attention? This has been coming down the pipe. This is good for Cohasset. Why are you saying you got sideblinded on this? We had defenders, and that was good.
It was just the timing was just, well,
You know what, Debbie, I would just, if I were you, take a breath and say, thank you. We worked really hard on our marketing, and we're very pleased. You can always market more. But
well, now we're going to try and get that opt up, because that is where we're going to make the inroads on, on getting rid of fossil fuels. It's one of the biggest ways of doing it, and really encouraging. All of the recs are coming from Massachusetts and New England. So it's really encouraging renewables in our area. And that's what we're going to capitalize on.
Okay, good.
So can I jump now to the table?
Yes, please.
It seems like a natural segue. So what I was thinking about for the table is a couple of things, and I really need some help with it. I was thinking about having a computer there, a big monitor. Steve and I talked about this with, this was actually Steve's idea, with our projects cycling through, so we would just have, nobody lingers. There's going to be 1 million tables, 1,000 people, I guess, come through. So we got to be real quick, but just having our project cycle through. The other thing I was thinking about was having 5 or 6 iPads, if we could get them, and have that calculator there so people could pick up, put in whatever they think their kilowatt hours are right then and there, and then talk with us about all of that. And then we can kind of make a pitch. And then I wanted to take that table that's in there, that has all of everything laid out. It's a great table that we worked with Good Energy on, and just send that home with them. So we'd have to have some printed things. And then we also need to think about any other printed material we want, any other things that we want. So I guess what I need help with is getting 1 or 2 people to help man the table. It's March 26th, 1 to 4. It's actually, I'm not even sure, it's somewhere. And I think it's Deer Hill. And it is, I'll let anyone know, but I need some help manning the table. Steve can't do it, right, Steve? So
Yeah, I've got something going on in the afternoon, so I can't do it really.
This is the rec, is this the rec one? Rec
this
fair?
is the rec one. And I guess that, I was reading today, they have like 1,000 people coming through, and they're all Cohasset. I mean, they're all Cohasset because they're signing kids up for all the sports and stuff. So, and it's young people, which is great. So whoever can help me, whoever's got an iPad, if you like this idea, maybe, and I'm open to any other ideas for this, but I think we can make a big impact. It's a chance to, really get some of our message out.
I'll help you that day. I'm not sure that I've got the best ideas on how to do it, but I'm certainly willing to help you.
Do you like the iPad idea? Whoops, I think Pat, you're muted.
Yeah, I think that, or, sorry, my phone's going off here. Either the, iPad or some other way to visualize some of these things would be good. Are you talking about just from the community aggregation perspective, or?
The iPad would be for the calculators. We just
Yeah,
hand people
okay.
and say, plug it in, and then we can talk to them about opting up and giving them that flyer. On the other half of the table, it's a 6-foot table, would be the general AEC stuff is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think that works.
And I do think the iPads, I think it'll attract a lot of people to the table. There'll be a lot of activity around it. So.
Okay.
By the way, Tanya, we thought we could use some of your slides, presentation slides to the select board for this show and tell.
Yeah, I'm happy to help. And I think on the 26th, I think that I can be there. So I can at least be there part of the time, if not all the time.
So does anybody have a big monitor that we could use? That would be nice. And then we just put them on the slideshow thing and just keep rolling them through, right?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. I think I do. If it works.
Okay, does anybody have iPads?
I have one.
Okay. I have one. Actually, I have two. So I can bring two. Anybody else? Well, that's three. Any of you guys, Mike Schmidt, any of you guys?
I'm out of town and I can't let you have my iPad. Sorry.
Oh, I get that.
Well,
Yeah,
probably. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I'll be up skiing that weekend, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
If there's still snow.
Well, three of them might be enough because, you don't know how many people are going to be, you're not going to be able to interact with too many people at the same time. So 3 might be plenty.
Okay, all right, we'll stick with 3. So if you bring yours, I'll bring my 2. And so right now we've got Tanya and Pat, and nobody else is available, it looks like. So, so are there any other materials that we want to put out? So Tanya, do we have a
solar data?
Yeah, I think the solar data would be good. Good idea, Mike. Solar data, let's talk about how much we've saved.
Right. And can we point out that we're the only committee generating revenue?
Yeah. Why don't we do a poster?
Net revenue, positive revenue, because the schools generate revenue through the bus fees and other things, but not positive net.
There you go. There you go.
They're the
net
biggest
revenue.
consumer of everything too.
Yeah, but I think we definitely can put up, all the money we brought in, and just so look, this is a way to toot our horn as well as to get people excited about what's happening and inspired.
So that could either be slides, that are cycling through, or a handout kind of thing. I don't know, maybe a summary handout of kind of some of the things we've done. But I think people don't really want to take a lot of stuff. I think they would take the information about, opting up. But I don't know if they.
Yeah, so
really-
let's do this. We've got our subcommittee, Pat and myself and Debbie. So let's, come together and think about how to put this together and make it happen.
Perfect.
Okay.
Sounds good.
But let's do that offline. And if anybody has suggestions, email the three of us. And ideally, if there's like an article or something that you think would be great to like print out and just have their heat pumps, other things, we can do some takeaways for that. Maybe we do a QR code that brings them to our site.
Do the cover of the stroll or the Life on the Rocks.
Yeah. Could do that for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so send us the emails on that. Again, I know we always run up against, it's fine. We have one meeting a month. We jam pack it full, but I like to keep things moving. Okay, rec fair. So that's good job, Debbie. Thank you for coordinating on that. I appreciate you taking.
One
the-
other question, quick. I'm sorry.
Yes,
Do we have any budget?
no.
Okay.
I don't actually. Could you check with Michelle and Ginny and Chris Senior? I do believe Chris gave us a budget of $10,000, but that was thinking we were going to hire a consultant to help with. So why don't you check and see? I think actually we may have budget, which would be good. We should take X% of everything we bring in going forward. Maybe that's going to be a proposal at the end of this year.
Great idea.
Well, because I have one other thing quick. May 20th is the huge sustainability fair.
Is that the Eco Fest?
The Eco Fest, yes,
Okay.
the Eco Fest. And one of the things that they wanted to do is to have some things for kids. And I was thinking that it sounds dumb, but have pinwheels for the kids. Anyway, that's what I was thinking. And whether we could buy them online, get a big bunch of them. But I was thinking we just recreate what we're kind of doing for the health fair or not, or, whatever. But we also have to be thinking about the May 20th Eco Fest and our table there.
Is that going to be organized around cleaning up Cohasset again?
No. No.
Oh, so this is the one that we had on the common with all the surrounding towns?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, what about the cleanup on Earth Day? Is that an issue?
I don't think anyone's doing that. I'm not hearing.
So let's, for Earth Day, why don't we make sure Justin has some blurbs ready to go for Earth Week? So let's make it our goal to each come with an idea, a link, a picture, a blurb, something fun and funny to provide to Justin, so the week of Earth Day, he can post something every day from us.
Well, I'm working with Justin right now. I was going to bring it up later, but we're doing a 3-part series and actually need somebody to be interviewed at the solar array for the first
3-part
segment.
series on what?
What's that?
A 3-part series on us?
Well, that's the first segment, is on the array. The second one would be Dave Herman to be revisiting his house and his solar deployment and battery deployment, and talk about, what he's seen from a financial benefit. And the third one is going to be with Res Solar, who have already been and spoken with them. So they're the only solar company in Cohasset. They have a niche where they focus on doing solar for like pools and things like that. So more not photovoltaic, but like when you're heating the water, water heating. It's escaping me the word for it right now, but anyway, he's going to talk about incentives that came with some of the new bills and just the climate in the industry. How's that sound?
That's for Earth Day, Josh?
Would you say, is it gonna be for Earth Day?
Yeah, I mean, for that, is it gonna be published that week? Is that what you're saying?
We could. It's gonna take, some time to get these segments filmed. It's gonna be with 143 TV. So we
Okay, so
we just have
Josh,
to
why don't you
arrange
find
and
out? I'm
schedule.
happy to help however you need it. However you need. If you
Great.
need a spokesperson from the array. Um,
Yep.
I'm also happy, as chair, I think Pat also is a good person who can be interviewed. I mean, everybody on this group can talk about the great things we're doing. So I'm happy to, whatever you need on that, but I think we should still, by the next meeting, everybody come in and present your, the blurb that's going to go out via Justin on Earth Day. In addition to what you're doing, Josh.
Sounds good.
Okay. And then Josh, let us know by next meeting or before if you need us to help to get this done before Earth Day.
Yeah, if you're gonna be the person, we'll need your help. I'll reach out to schedule.
Okay.
That's
Awesome.
awful tight against that week. Our next meeting, this will be awfully tight. So maybe we just each toss out an idea before then. Because they're
Well,
gonna
No, our idea is by the next meeting. When is Earth Day? Isn't it the end of the month?
April 22nd.
Yeah. So he just needs to have them ready to go in the can. For the 7 ideas. As far as what Josh is doing, I leave that to him and Justin. Because our next meeting is when? April
11th, I'm sorry, 13th?
April 13th. So I think the goal would be just we each come with an idea about what we want to highlight. Josh packages them up into blurbs, and then it's small stuff like tweets, not movies, unless there's a cool movie. Like if there's a cool movie you've seen on something tied to the planet or renewables or energy efficiency or heat pumps or, whatever. Find your passion. Let's put it into something easy to post. And Josh can take it and streamline it with Justin for Earth Day week. Okay, that's a homework assignment. Action item, Debbie. Make that an action item for everyone.
So Ty, just to clarify this, you said a blurb. Are we talking about a video blurb?
No, we're just talking about some link to something interesting and consistent with what our mission is.
Okay, for Justin to post?
Yep. Just to give him content every day. Post.
By the way, I just checked. The Earth Day is April 22nd.
Okay. So that's running up. So the week is the 16th to the 22nd. So I guess the question is, do you guys want to meet on do you want to meet on the 30th to talk about our ideas on that and just have a meeting dedicated solely to that? Actually, the 30th is tougher.
In lieu of our regular meeting or in addition?
In addition.
I
I'm
can't make
open to
the
that.
30th.
Okay. What about the 29th?
29th, I'm available.
So let's do the 29th. Debbie, send me a note on this because this is outside of the pattern, so I will immediately forget it as soon as I hang up on this call. Tanya sent out a invite for this, and it's only to talk about the things, the proposed postings that we want Justin to make for Earth Day. And each of us come to the table with something. And then we hand it over to Josh after we discuss it, make sure we're all in agreement that this is great. It can highlight us, it can highlight what we're doing, it can highlight general information, but make sure I'll circulate around our mission so we all remember what our mission is and keep it consistent with our mission
Okay,
and Earth Day.
so you said the 29th, right? But it should be the 30th, right?
Except Mike Schmidt can't make the 30th Thursday.
Oh, okay. All right, the 29th then.
Yep.
Okay. Wednesday, the 29th.
Is that okay with everybody? To do it
Yeah, so
Wednesday?
the regular time, like 7:30?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
We'll post it. In fact, I might just post it tomorrow so we don't forget, and put in an Outlook invite for all of us so we don't forget, because it's out of pattern.
Yeah.
In multiple ways. But it's just
Whose,
gonna be an
Zoom
hour.
meeting is this?
We will set the timer, and after 1 hour, we're done, because we could talk about it forever.
Whose Zoom meeting is this?
Oh, who's well, Tanya's host and Pat's host.
Is it whose actual Zoom account is this?
This is the town.
I think it's Michelle's, yeah.
Because there's serious settings that need to be addressed before the next meeting,
Okay.
right? I mean, you guys
There's
can't
no
see me.
chat, which is kind of bothers me.
What?
I don't think there's a
There's no
chat.
chat available.
I don't,
Yeah,
oh, okay,
I got no
let's
video.
not talk about the
Right.
logistics
Anyway,
right now, but I'm happy to have anybody who wants to deal with this, talk to Michelle about it.
I can do it.
Normally Michelle controls it, or Ginny would take control of it. And I don't know if Ginny can make Wednesday, the 29th. So we'll ask her, but we'll just, move forward. It's great to have her. We prefer to have her. But again, I think we need to, make things move, have things move ahead.
So Tanya, let me just be so Justin has his Friday email. So what are you saying? Put it out on social media every day? Is that what your intent is?
Well, it's going to be for Earth Week. So we either put it on social media or we give it to Justin to put out if he wants to do something special for Earth Day, Earth Week.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. I want to move on to the MAPC greenhouse gas report and the inventory grant. And Josh, do you want to take the lead on that?
Sure. So yeah, I mean, I just reached out because it had been so long, and I was on their website and I saw the contact, and I just said, I'm going to ask, like, where are we? What do we need to do? What are the requirements? And they're like, oh, we already did it, as you saw in the email. But that lady left. I don't know if Michelle's not on. She probably can't speak to it, but it's been completed. We have our baseline. It's 77,000 metric tons of CO2. I think it's based on 2017. So we can, I guess, compile a list of questions that we can go back to them with, and even request, I don't know if we're gonna briefing, since we never got one of those.
Yeah. So I'm remembering, was this issued in 2021?
Yes, that's what it said.
So we did a baseline, and that might have been 2017. So this might be what they're working it against. And
Yes, the date on the report was 2017.
okay, so I'm trying to remember, and Steve, your institutional knowledge might be helpful here, but Josh, what happened was, to be a green communities, we had to do an inventory and commit to reducing carbon emissions by a certain amount. We did a baseline. I think it might have been 2017 or earlier. And then maybe it's 2015, and then we did an update in 2017, and our emissions actually went up, but then they do a weather adjustment. And then, because if it's colder, people are going to use more, the town's going to use more fossil fuels. And so I guess, did we get context around this 2021 report and what it means and how it's been used and who took it and who's done anything with it? Like, where was it?
Yeah, I mean, you saw the email. That's the whole, I don't know if you read the whole chain, but I just reached out. they said, here it is. So now we just have to figure out what questions do we have for them.
Can we get a,
Oh,
can we get
so
a
many
consultant from
questions.
MAPC here?
What's
Can we
Steve,
get,
what was it again?
can we get a consultant from MAPC to attend our meeting and brief us on this?
That's a great idea.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Josh,
I
so
mean-
that would be an action item for you. If you could ask MAPC, maybe at our next, not the next meeting, but the one in April, see if they can come and present to us on what was done and what it means and what we should do with it and what we could do going forward.
Also, it would be nice to know how much of the budget that we had for that consultant actually got used.
I think all of it. I don't think it was a big budget.
Okay, all right, I think it was $5,000, something like
Right.
that.
I will just request that they come brief us and then we can pepper them.
Excellent. Okay, let's do that because I think that would be the best way to get the information. Okay. The grants. Pat, do you have an update from Ginny on the grants? Or anything else?
Her
Ginny gave you a written-
update on the grants was Tanya knows all about this.
No, she gave a written report.
Yeah, but on the grants, I asked her if she talked to town council and she said that you knew what was going on with them. Let me just see what she said. She just gave us she sent it around to everybody. It's in our email.
Okay,
She
but
just-
can you read it into the record for the recorded?
Sure, just a second, let me find it. Okay, so her first comment was on the charging stations. So she attended an EV charging meeting where communities from around Massachusetts were discussing the price they were charging at municipal charging stations. Vehicles they were purchasing and issues with charging. And Michelle is to send Ginny the pricing information she has for charging, so that can be compared with the other communities doing the same, and to make sure that the Cohasset price, fees, and surcharges are in line. Prior to initiating charging a fee, we would give users a notice we will be that it will be coming, and gain feedback on price, fees, and surcharges proposed to hopefully prevent backlash from users. And we essentially, she's saying we do not want this to appear to be punitive to EV drivers. That was it on the charging stations. Any questions on that? Okay, she just mentioned the community choice aggregation subcommittee, and I think she just reiterated what's already been stated by Steve and Debbie in terms of meeting with them and working with Justin on the media outreach. She also mentioned the public outreach events that are going, our roles in those, including the rec fair and EcoFest. And on EcoFest, Ginny is on the coordinating committee for the EcoFest and had met with Debbie and Steve this week to discuss how the AEC can be involved and gain permission to open town hall on Saturday, May 20th from 2 to 7 for use for that event. I think that's it on that one. And then, oh, she said she's also reached out to Brianna at Hingham Municipal Light, who is also on the coordinating committee, and she is talking with Abode regarding bringing items for, I guess, to demonstrate electrification. And she's going to coordinate with Debbie on that. In addition, the AEC can have a table at the event. We discussed highlighting community choice aggregation and other projects, as well as trying to get more people to opt up by handing out flyers or having a QR code for people to scan and opt up. So she also reiterated the calculator use. So that's it on the community choice aggregation and rec fair and EcoFest. MAPC greenhouse report. She just said we need to do more research on whether this came from and what's left of the grant. On the grants, she didn't have anything for Mass CEC, electric school bus update, or the National Grid fleet assessment. However, she mentioned on the MVP grant that the deadline is late March. Ideas for climate action plan for Cohasset to create a roadmap towards sustainability and resilience that other ideas such as eelgrass restoration would fall under. Montana proposed the eelgrass restoration project for MVP, but Ginny believes a more comprehensive plan would be a better use of the funding. And she spoke to Montana today, and she may have another source of funding for the eelgrass. She said, please discuss and let me know if interested in pursuing this option. I literally have no idea what that is, so I can't comment on it. Does anybody else have any insight on that?
I would just say that may not be in our
Yeah,
bailiwick, and we should just make clear to her, that what I'll send to her again as part of my action item to recirculate our mission for purposes of the Earth Week blurbs. I'll also send it to her and make sure she understands what our thing is. I think that's more for the Climate and Resiliency Committee.
sure. Okay, so Green Communities grant was the next thing. The deadline's the fall of this year. She spoke to the facilities director and discussed applying for a fall round of Green Communities funding for controls for the Osgood and Deer Hill for their HVAC systems. He said he installed new controls with the last grant for the high school, middle school, and would like to have them all be the same year model, which will make repairs and replacement easier. She said that Lisa from DOER has been emailing with her, and there's outstanding paperwork that Michelle and Nick, the facilities director, are now aware of that needs to be completed to close out the high school, middle school project in order for us to apply for the fall grant round. So it sounds like that's a hurdle for us to be eligible for the next grant. And there's something about a culvert replacement project, but again, I don't think that's in our purview. So unless anybody, I could let that people read that on their own if they'd like. And that's it.
Okay, great. And then just with respect to, I think she mentioned that there's been a lot of emails going back and forth on some of these grants. And we are bringing them to the finish line. The batteries for Harborview is undergoing a final review by MAPC. So we're looking to get that sent back to us and signed. The electric school bus, they now have gotten the final agreement on almost everything. The last thing is Ray from the schools did do a test drive of an electric bus. And during that test drive, he was told that you have to have a level 3 charger, which was not part of the proposal. So we're now having a final discussion with them to understand if they're doing a level 2 or level 3. And if it's a level 2, why they think that would be adequate when the bus manufacturer said it was not. But we basically are finalizing negotiations on the school bus, the electric school bus. We're in the queue, so we're not going to lose our place. We just need to finalize the terms and conditions and bring it over the finish line, but thankfully that's happening. And then we'll let Jenny speak to the MVP grant next time. And everything else, the culvert replacement project, I think is probably climate and resiliency and the Green Communities Grant. I think we're in a good position. If we have money left, we might not have money left under the Green Communities funding because they do have a cap and we may have met that cap. So we should find that out before next meeting. So that'd be an action item for Ginny, which is to find out if we have money left in the Green Communities Grant. Okay. All right, any matters not reasonably known in advance? Woo! All right, 9:14. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make that
Motion
motion.
to adjourn.
Thank you,
Sorry.
Chris,
Second
and a
that.
second from Pat. No need to do a roll call vote. Thank you, everybody, for your dedication and passion and purpose on this. We continue to just keep moving that ball forward, and I think I just couldn't do it. Obviously, none of us could do it alone, and so the committee is just amazing to work with. So thank you for the opportunity, and we will have our next meeting on the 29th, followed by our standard meeting to address our typical things in April. And we'll just keep on keeping on.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Have a
everyone.
good night.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, thank you.